Everybody. Good afternoon and welcome back again. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your continued support and for everything that you're connected to at Starting Point. As Loretta mentioned, we're on the journey, but we never worry because we know the higher power is with us and will guide us. And as long as we can keep the doors open and keep helping people, that's what life is all about. So thanks, guys. Okay, I want to start by doing a reading for today's session. I picked it from my meditation book, Meditations with Native American Elders. And it's one of the ones I really like when I talk about growth. Our earth continues to grow by cycles and seasons. The cycles of growth, spring, summer, fall, and winter. The cycles of the human being, baby, youth, adult, elder. It is through these cycles that we'll experience the changes. We'll not always necessarily agree with the changes. I need to trust the higher power who's in charge. Things will come and things will go. Really, in reality, I own nothing. The Creator owns all. Too often I label things as mine. I said, this belongs to me, but it really belongs to the Creator. He gives me things to take care of. I need to do the best I can with what I have and what I know at the time. When the Creator decides to change things, I need to let go, for His planning is the best. O Great Spirit, today let me do the best I can with what I know, with what I have. Let me experience acceptance, especially of your will. I wanted to share that because we're continuing developing this mosaic that I talk about all the time. And the next piece of the mosaic we're putting together is about personal growth. Growth is a very powerful and beautiful word. In AA, there's a very powerful saying they have, and it really makes a lot of sense based on the steps. It's the willingness to change and the willingness to grow. One of the basic things about building this mosaic is that each and every one of us has to be willing to do the work, willing to do the footwork, but to do it with a sense of faith, a sense of trust, that everything will be led to where we're supposed to be led, but it will happen in God's time, not in our time. And so I want to begin today by talking about what I refer to as the cycle of life. And this is where our growth process takes place. I mentioned this in one of my other lectures, especially the one on codependency. There actually is a diagram in psychology about how life is supposed to be. So let me bore you for a couple of minutes with some psychology, okay? And then we'll talk about reality. In psychology, they teach that the first 10 years of your life are referred to as the foundation stage. Then from 11 to about 13 is called the stage of confusion. We all go through that, our hormones and everything else. And then from 13 to about 20, it's called the state of conflict, the state of struggle, the battle that goes on in our growth process. And then from 20 to 21, they call that the stage of commitment. And then from 26 to 120, 130, whatever it happens to be, it's called adulthood. Now, I don't want you to care too much about the ages. The journey of life doesn't work in compartments. Growth is a process. To me, it's the most beautiful process of life. It's a process we all have to go through. And many of us will go through it kicking and screaming. Many of us will fight it and will battle it. But one beautiful thing about the process is it will continue, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and even socially, as long as we're open and willing to be a part of it and be connected to it. But the process is always changing. Now, the two enemies of this process, the process of growth in life, are two powerful, powerful negative words. One is control and one is fear, especially fear of the unknown. And so many of us, as we go through life, have a tendency to kind of try to do this kind of stuck in our ego, and we forget about our spirit. Then we have to go back and deal with it. I mentioned that it's a process. It's a process that happens slowly. It's a process that is gradual. And the hardest part with that for us, myself included, is many of us don't have patience. We don't know how to participate in the process with a sense of patience, a sense of time, and just to be open to allow it to happen. I think what happens to many of us, especially if we're codependents or in any other area, we're always trying to control the process, try to organize it. And we've got, we're talking about the biggest hard head of all right here. I basically tried that for many, many years. In fact, I have to kind of share this with you. Going through the foundation stage in the first stages of my life, I never really experienced these stages until I was in my middle 40s. The first 44, 45 years of my life, I was in denial, I was frozen, I was shut down, and basically, I figured I was done. This is what I had to do, I had to be, I had to function, go this way until about 10 years after you're dead. And so my life literally was performance. It was external, it wasn't internal. And it's interesting how God works in mysterious ways, my higher power, because messengers come to us. They come to us in God's time, not in our time. They come to us sometimes kicking and screaming. They come to us to try to get things across to us, but it takes time. And I know this because of my own journey and my own life, because first of all, I never wanted to look at the foundation years because somebody else did it for me. So basically, I didn't have to do any of that work because it was done for me by my mom. And I love her today. But basically, I also was being formed and developed by outside sources, not from the inside. And it's amazing because even after I was ordained a priest and I went on my journey, it's just amazing how so many times I had to be able to put myself into so much jeopardy, put myself in so many crazy situations until I was ready to develop that sense of willingness, that sense of openness, because I thought I had all the answers. And I'm going to tell you a story. It's not really a story. It's more of a way in which we look at life. And I get a kick out of it sometimes. It's almost like when you're young, especially in those foundation years, we're very dependent, which, by the way, is normal. We're dependent on what I refer to as the giants. See, when you're a little child, you look at these people called adults, and they look like the giants. So whatever the giants tell us to do, and the giants tell us who we are and tell us what we're all about, it's like they're laying the foundation. We don't even know it's happening sometimes. But then we have that little child, which sometimes I love, called the rebellious child, or the child that basically wants to kind of do something differently. But no, the giants always have a way of trying to bring that child back, control that child. I always use the example, of my two little friends, Charlie Brown and Snoopy. I get a kick sometimes because poor old Charlie Brown, the ultimate codependent, was always trying to control Snoopy, putting him in obedience school, trying to make him do what he wanted him to do. And Snoopy had this thing called a free spirit. And so literally every time Charlie tried to control him, the free spirit would take over. And of course, he would drive Charlie crazy. Sounds like us, doesn't it? It's almost like every time I control things in life, I can't control them. They usually back up on me or cause me more problems, more chaos, and more confusion until I get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then usually, with a lot of struggle, I come to this thing called willingness. And I got to go back to this journey because so many times in my own life, especially, I went through my adolescence when I was in my 30s. Now, it was supposed to happen back when I was, 13, 14 years old. And so I was ordained I was a priest ordained. And as a result, then I basically started my adolescent journey and basically being a little bit of a rebellion and going against everything. So if the church said blue, I said yellow. They said yellow, I said blue. I was always contradicting everything, fighting everything, battling everything. And my therapist, whom I love dearly, used to always say this to me because for almost 44 years of my life, I spent most of my life in what I call the blame game. And by the way, it's a great game, by the way. We should all try it. It's wonderful. Yeah. Blame everybody else for what's going on in your life. Never have to deal with it. Isn't that neat? So I used to blame the church, my parents, my family. I used to blame the government. I used to blame everybody. And my therapist was a real pain. He kept telling me, it's not their issue, Vince, it's your issue. I don't want to hear that. And finally, I had to be able to succumb and be able, because I had these tremendous fears. I had fear of the unknown. So what do you try to do? Control the known. What's in front of you? Because I was afraid. I was afraid of change. I was afraid of growth. I was afraid of new things in the course of my life. And so I was afraid to grow, to learn new things. It's much easier just to stay in a little cocoon. I use the example very many times of the caterpillar and the butterfly. Staying in that little cocoon is kind of safe. No risks. But after a while, you have to leave. You have to rediscover who you are as a person. And I don't know about you, but I fought that for a real long period of time. I was scared to discover the butterfly. And I will tell a story. A good friend of mine way back in 1977, actually 76 to be exact, but it came alive in 77. His name was Norm D. Norm was one of my first real contacts when I first came into recovery. And Norman took me to an AA meeting in Center City, Philadelphia, back then called the Mustard Seed. It's still around today. And he gave me a little talk, because that was the period of my life when I was in a state of total confusion, conflict, didn't know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, how I wanted to handle things in the course of my life. I really was in a real stage of confusion and conflict back then. I didn't want to be where I was, and yet I couldn't go anyplace else. So many fears, so many control things. And Norm said to me, I took you to this meeting for a reason, Vince. Notice his name is the mustard seed. And try to remember something. God is planting inside of you this little mustard seed. And if you are able to connect with it and give it a chance, but you have to be patient. It's going to take time. And that mustard seed will start to grow. It'll grow into something huge. May not be the prettiest thing on the face of the earth, but it will be something beautiful and special. He said, but it's not going to happen overnight. And you're going through a stage right now where you are planting the mustard seed. And never forget that, because he was setting me up. I got to tell you the rest of the story. The next day, I was at St. Luke's Hospital in Northeast Philly, because I was still going through my confusion. So I was visiting patients there. And Norm was there, and he said, come with me. I said, where are we going? I got some people I want you to meet. Went into this room, we sat down, and there were 5 other people there. And they had a conversation, and they said, we have a job for you. I said, job? What are you talking about? He said, well, remember the mustard seed? Well, now we're going to plant it. Okay. And basically, we need you to open up a halfway house for street people who have no place to go. Okay. Now, back in those days, I had this disease, and Norm knew it, called yes to everything. Even though I couldn't do it, I say yes to it anyway. I said, oh, okay, give it a shot. So in that room in St. Luke's Hospital, the mustard seed was planted and Starting Point was born. Of course, Norm didn't tell me the house they gave me, was boarded up. 2 windows were missing. And basically part of the roof had a tarp on it. And when we opened and the South Philly group, thank God, when we opened the doors of the room, we noticed we already had guests. We had little guys running around, things crawling up walls. God, we had lots and lots of guests already. And so it took us a long time to fumigate, to get the place ready, to begin to work on it. But he said something to me, and I always never forget Norm. He said, don't worry. The higher powers got your back. a little bit at a time, growth will take place. A little bit at a time, the seed has been planted. I'll never forget that, because that little bit at a time is something I was now going to struggle with and work with for a long period of time. But I realized, with the help of so many beautiful people, and especially people from two of the AA clubhouses in Philly, who helped me get the thing off the ground and get it started. And then the miracles started to happen. You see, I learned something from that experience. I learned that deep down inside of each and every one of us, the higher power, God, as we choose to call God, is planting seeds in us, like little mustard seeds. And those seeds have to nurture, they have to grow. It doesn't make any difference how old you are. It's a process. And sometimes, like most of us, we have to do it the hard way first. We have to get a headache. Got to get a little bit of what I would call agita, make ourselves a little nuts and crazy, until finally we're ready to do something. And I love the aspect of planting the seed, which is so important. And my good friend from Texas here knows what I'm talking about, because she plants a lot of beautiful seeds, a lot of beautiful things come up in her garden. And that's the beautiful part about life. But one thing we all understand, whenever you plant a seed, you have to nurture it, you have to water it, you got to take care of it, and you have to have patience as it goes through the process of growing. We are like the mustard seed. We're all in the process of growing, and we all kind of work at our own pace. And yet the messengers are there. Do we listen to them? Not all the time. And I love telling the story, it's kind of crazy, because of my own stubbornness and my own being shut down, and me trying to do everything externally and not internally. Because I know today I was scared to death of the internal. I ended up having a nervous breakdown in 1972 when I was 32 years old. And here comes one of God's messengers. The higher power works in funny ways. I really mean that. Sometimes the higher power is a pain in you know what. But the messages slowly get through, slowly and gradually. And the amazing part about it was, the doctor at the hospital said to me, and I was a Catholic priest at the time, he said, "Vince, you're spiritually dead. You have no idea who the hell you are. You haven't the slightest notion of who you are." And of course, I looked at him and said, "How can I be spiritually dead? I was a priest. What do you mean I don't know who I am?" Everything was based around what I did, not who I was. And he planted that seed inside of me. There's another rendition of the mustard seed. And as a result, then basically, I didn't really accept a lot of what he said, because I was still stuck in wanting to do it my way. I was stuck in the highway. And basically, I had this hard head, and I wasn't ready yet. And yet, I did listen to him a little bit. As a result of going there, I got into my first 12-step program, but I didn't get into it. See, I'm a good codependent. Back then, I was referred to as a two-stepper. I did the first and the 12th step. Didn't need those 10 in between, they were minor. I just had to, I put down the substance. Here we go. Let's save the world. And that killed me to another point of an eating disorder, all kinds of problems. But boy, isn't it amazing how we are as human beings? It's crazy sometimes how we really think we can control the journey. We really think that we are able to handle everything. But that fear of the unknown gets a lot of us into a lot of trouble, because we're trying to figure out, where's it going to go? I even get a kick out of this, because people come here for counseling, and they say to me, "Now, if I come here and get counseling, can you assure me things will come out the way I think they should come out?" I say, "No. You can come to counseling, do your work, and see where things take you. I don't know." See, they think I have a magic wand. I do have one, by the way. I bought it at the dollar store. It's nice. It changes colors. I see, I'm Italian. I can't help it. What I would like to do after I wave it over their head is hit them over the head with it. But see, I can't do that today. Years ago, I could do that, but now I can't. And so literally, I have to allow people to go at their own pace, their own learning. And all we can do is watch the seeds get planted, get planted. And it's amazing how many times messengers come into our life and plant seeds and show us things. And then basically, until we're ready, we don't do it. Why? Fear. Fear. Biggest thing in the world. I think the biggest thing in my life was I was scared to death that people might really get to know me, to find out who I really am. It's so much fun just being external and being able to perform and be on stage. And I may find out today, and I go back to my own history and I joke about it today. When I was in the seminary, guess what? I was a stage manager for many plays. I was in all kinds of plays. I took speech and drama and all that kind of stuff. It was wonderful. But basically, it wasn't real. And I'll know today that I got to go through this process in life. And going through adolescence at a later age is scary because you do a lot of things and get connected to a lot of things that basically you get embarrassed about. But it's part of the growth process we have to go through. And so sometimes we have to be able to go through that stage of conflict and confusion and struggle until we're ready to move on. We're ready to grow. And growth is what it's really all about. And I find it so amazing. Norm said to me, the mustard seed is something that grows slowly and gradually. When I came into my final and my good recovery, I went into my eating disorder recovery through Overeaters Anonymous. My sponsor, Richard, a beautiful man, used to say the exact same to me. He said, now, take your time. Let's just do a little bit at a time. I'll never forget him. God rest his soul. He used to put those two fingers up and say, if you learn that much today, you've made progress. Of course, me, typical compulsive person that I am, I used to say, Richard, about that much. He used to grab my hand and say, that much. A little bit at a time. Less is better. You discover one more thing. And it reminded me of that beautiful statement, progress, not perfection. Perfection is death. Perfection is dangerous. Progress, a little bit at a time. You never stop growing. You never stop learning. You're in process all the time. And I don't want to ever be done. I really do not want to be done because, when you're done, it means you're done. I don't want to be done. I want to be able to continue this process of learning and growing. And I'm experiencing today. I think my faith is a lot stronger today. My belief is a lot stronger. I have a sense of more of myself today, but guess what? I still got that little control button and I still got that little fear button. And you know what? They're going to be part of my life probably until maybe 25 years after I'm dead. Because I'm codependent. It takes a little longer. What can I tell you? But the bottom line is, it's a process we have to go through. I tell people all the time, I told my wife this too. When I die, all I want on my tombstone is, trust the process works. Keep life simple and just do what you can do for this moment. You come into your life, and many of us have a tendency to want to figure it out and go into what I call that fantasy world. And by the way, fantasy is wonderful to have an interlude every so often, but fantasy is not real. I keep thinking I'm going to create this great world. And then you know what? God takes you in a different direction. Things happen differently. We move in another direction. Never my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would actually leave the priesthood. I was too scared to leave. I never thought I would ever get married. Never thought I would but inherit 3 teenage stepdaughters. Never thought I'd have 7 grandkids. I never thought I'd be able to go through all that. Was it a struggle? Yes, thank God that it was. Was it a growth process? Yes. The different things I've experienced in life, and I still go through that today, right here at Starting Point. We're going through another growth process, another change process. Everything in life is a constant process. And so we have to be able to adjust accordingly. See, the hardest thing we have to do is be able to actually live in reality. Wherever we are on our journey today is exactly where we are supposed to be. And we're with the people and the individuals you're supposed to be with. And as life goes on, things will change and grow. And things have to always be growing and always changing. Because if things aren't growing, then basically they're dying. So growth is so important. And yet, like a garden or anything else, you have to weed, you have to water, you have to nurture, you have to take care of it. Now, I love watching my wife because my wife has a fantastic green thumb and she has all these beautiful plants outside and flowers and stuff. I love watching her every day. She's out there having a conversation with them. She talks to them because she says to me, Vince, they're living creatures. They're part of the earth and we're friends. And the beautiful thing about it is it's almost like her conversations, the things that she does. I see them growing. I see them getting much prettier. Now we have a plant in our front lawn. It's in a great big pot now that was given to us 35 years ago. And every year I cut it back, I put it inside, I put it back out, and the beautiful thing grows again. And it keeps growing and it keeps growing. And I understand that. I always love looking at that plant and realizing, you know what? That plant's not done. It's got a lot more life to it. Why? Because we're taking care of it. We're helping it. We're pruning it and getting rid of the old and allowing new to take place. So life is almost like a garden. It's like a process we're going through. But growth is supposed to be a slow process, a gradual process. It's a process we're all involved in. And so what am I saying today? Be patient. Now I understand my father when he drilled that into my head. Un pazienza Wyon, un pazienza Wyon. You know, he used to make me crazy when I was a kid. But he was right. Patience, my son. Patience, my son. So on my wall here at Starting Point, I have the word pazienza. So I can remind myself every day that you have to have faith, you have to have trust, you have to believe, and things will happen when they are supposed to happen. You know what's so beautiful about that? I never thought in my wildest dreams I would experience things beyond my wildest dreams, my wildest imagination. I heard that phrase a lot of times. And my sponsor used to read the 9-step promises to me. He used to tell me, you're going to experience things beyond your wildest dreams, your wildest imagination. They will just arrive. I personally thought it was a little nuts. It sounded nice, like a poem or something, but he was right. I never thought I'd be able to do half the things I'm doing today. I never thought I'd be able to write the way I'm writing today, to write books, to do different things, you know, to be involved in all different types of things in life, you know, but you know, it involves taking a risk. It involves moving forward. It involves adjusting. It involves changing. It involves growing. And yeah, physically we're going to grow and those stages are there. And we'll get to the elders. We're all going to become elders at one time or another. Believe me, you will, because I am one. So it's kind of nice, you know, and as a result, then you realize the fact, then it's your job to pass on the messages to others, to continue the process of growth. Just as people in relationships. So look at my grandkids. They came into this world as beautiful little children. And now I kept putting a brick on their head, but they kept growing. And now my oldest grandchild is 24, going on 25. My youngest is 15, just got his driver's license out in Montana. How'd that happen? And yet it's beautiful. You see the process that's going on. That's how life is. And so there is a beginning and there is an ending, but there's a process in between. I always use the term, never forget, you come in diapers, you go out in diapers. Isn't it fantastic? And the beautiful part about it is, it's the journey in between that counts. and the celebration of each moment, celebration of life. And so I pray for each and every one of us today that we continue our process of growth. As we keep growing and learning and discovering, we'll begin to experience new things and new dimensions in our life. But keep in mind, we are all little mustard seeds that started, and a little bit at a time, the growth takes place. Patience, be patient, be open. It will happen. I never thought my wildest dreams I'd be doing half the things I'm doing today. You know, the first time I heard about this thing called Zoom, I went like, ew. And now I love it. I got to meet people from all different parts. You know, I got to meet a beautiful lady from Texas, people from California, from different parts of the country, Maryland, Connecticut. Oh God, it's just amazing how many people I've got to meet and be connected to as a result of this. There's a purpose behind everything. I got to look at life and be able to be open to the process. And we're all in that process. So take it easy. Don't be so hard on yourself. Do the best you can every day. And if you learn that much more today, you've made growth. Growth is the secret. But remember, bien, a little bit at a time, and things will come when they're supposed to come. We have to learn the importance of letting go of trying to make it happen. Just be open to the process and allow it to happen. Work through your fears. Fears are nothing but barriers. When you walk through them, they don't exist anymore. And I can give you 18,000 examples of that. The biggest was when I was assigned to become a prison chaplain. And before I went into the prison, everybody gave me 88 stories. You're crazy, you're nuts, why you're doing that, everything else. And I'm going to be honest, I was scared out of my mind when I walked into the prison for the first time. I'm going to tell you, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I learned so much, but I had to be able to walk in the door and not make myself crazy before I walked in, although I did make myself crazy before I walked in. And many of us have a lot of fears. Fears are normal, but be able to face them. And you'll learn and you'll grow from them. And so my prayer today is for each and every one of us. We open our hearts and open our minds and realize that we're on a journey. And we know that somehow, somewhere, we're being led on that journey by a power greater than ourselves. Something out there is guiding us. We have to try to be open to it. So let us pray. God, we come before you as a family. We come before you in prayer. As we grow and learn more and more, we're open to new growth and new direction in life. Thank you for planting the seed within each and every one of us, for sending us messengers and teachers. Help us as we go on our journey to continue this process of growth, learning, and discovering beautiful gifts and talents we have inside of ourselves as people. Teach us to learn to love and accept who we are, to accept the things around us. Teach us to look to all the people who've touched our lives in the past and realize as we look upon the walls here, the memorial plaques and things to that effect, they're all people that have been part of our journey. They're all teachers. And some of them, there's sadness involved, and yet sometimes there's joy involved. It's a mixture of everything that makes up life. So we pray that we'll be able to be more open, that we'll be able to have a sense of growth. But above all, please give us the willingness to go in this process of growth, the willingness to begin to experience who we really are, to celebrate the gift of life you have given us as we continue this process of growth each and every day of our life. Please, thank you so much for walking alongside of us, and thank you for all the messengers you send into our life. We pray and we ask this each and every day. We pray it in your name. Amen. And I'm going to ask if all of you would unmute yourself and join me in the we version of the Serenity Prayer.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God's will, not mine, be done.